And now record. So indeed, we are back here on Wrestle Dope, and tonight talking Randy Savage, and indeed what a guy that we have now lost. You know, again, I mentioned the Macho King era, and what it sort of stood out to me as was maybe the guy's biggest push at the time. He had spent a few years sort of impressing with matches like with Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania, which a lot of people have mentioned as being one of the big classics of his career. So I think maybe on the back of that, they saw more to the guy than they had before. Of course, he had the mega powers and things, so he had a major push, but maybe it was slowing down, started to impress, and then suddenly you had this King thing. And you know, to me, he was a top heavyweight, you know, world title holder at that point, and promos with guys like Zeus stand out in my memory. You showed that one to me recently.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I mean, he was a guy, I think, that like the best reinvented himself when there was nothing really for him. If he came out of an angle with Steamboat, it was into the deal with DiBiase. From there, it was into the deal with the mega powers, and constantly evolving his character right up until that Macho King deal. I think that would have been around WrestleMania 7, WrestleMania 8 possibly. It was post Hogan. Well, he had the Dusty deal as well at that WrestleMania 6. But again, I think the Macho Man Randy Savage thing had expired a little bit around 1990, 91, and for him to come along with that Macho King deal, I can't really remember how he became the Macho King. Was it the King of the Ring from back then?
It was the King of the Ring.
King of the Ring. Yeah, it's mad actually. I do have a memory of watching one of those DVDs a couple of months ago where you had the entire heel roster from that era with your Powers of Pain and the Greg Valentines and DiBiase giving him the present of the scepter as a gift to the Macho King. But funny stuff, you know, stuff that always kind of will stay with you.
I think back as well to that feud with Jake the Snake Roberts, and at that point I was firmly a regular viewer watching that weekly TV and making sure to catch WWF superstars every single week. You had Savage, and Roberts at the time was healing it up. He brought that snake in. Of course, you had that famous snake bite on the side of Savage's arm, and that was legit. They couldn't have faked that one. The blood streaming from his arm. I don't think a guy would, let alone be allowed to do it, but would actually agree to do something like that these days. I mean, I just can't imagine them maybe throwing a Zack Ryder in there and having his arm bitten by a snake like that. So again, this is an era where guys were legit, and guys probably didn't script much of their promos. Here's a guy who could have come back and taught so much to those young guys.
Yeah, I don't think that guy would have scripted anything, to be honest with you. He was always in the zone, the macho zone with the madness. But no better guy to do it. And I don't think anybody even comes close, really, looking back. I've said it before. I will stand by it that I genuinely do think he was up there as the greatest ever.
Where is this all going now? People are going to find out results of the autopsy. I think in a way, concentrating on that now, what's it going to prove? What is it going to enlighten us, other than perhaps the family members who need to know? Do we really need to know, is the question I'm asking. I think the main thing is the guy is gone now, and unfortunately we're not going to get an opportunity to see him back in the company. Of course, recently as well, not to forget that he had signed some deals, and it was looking like the guy could have had a chance to be on TV a little bit more. I think it was an action figure deal, by all accounts.
Yeah, I do remember we were doing the show around the time of that Mattel deal, and definitely marking out at the fact that he had cut that little promo on, was it that or was it All Stars? I think it was the Mattel. It was the Mattel thing. Yeah, it was the Mattel thing. But even though he had his grey beard, most of the people at that conference or whatever it was, comic book convention or something like that, definitely marked out too, and gave us hope that maybe someday we might see him inducted into the Hall of Fame, or some sort of return, or some sort of a Legends deal going forward. But Actually, not to be the case.
Now, I must mention that so many people have cried out, if you like, about this. Of course, we've mentioned people like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair as well was talking about Savage. You had Jericho tweeting, and on that subject of Jericho, you might recall back a few months ago when we had that interview with Chris, I asked the Randy Savage question, and when I asked it, I really didn't think it was going to have a definitive answer. It was just that question that gets asked in most interviews. You know, you see guys like JR getting asked, and in a sense I wanted to know if he had any further information, if we kind of glean anything from what Chris had to say about it. Here's what he did say. We asked him about that. Well, recently, a lot of speculation on the internet and all over regarding Randy Savage and about how he sort of signed some deals now and maybe getting a bit more involved with the company. Of course, it is a bit of a dream for a lot of fans to see him return. Do you think that's a possibility at all?
I'm sure everything's a possibility. I mean, everybody else has returned, so whatever issues Vince and Savage have, I hope they work them out, because Randy is one of the greatest of all time, and he's one of my all-time favorites, and he deserves that. Any kind of Hall of Fame or whatever capacity he wants to be involved. I think he deserves it, because much like Bret, I think until Bret came back to the WWE, his career always kind of had that, that purgatory where he deserved that closure, and I'm glad that he got it. I'm glad that the fans got it, and I hope to get that with Savage too.
Recently, so that is what Jericho had to say, and really what we could see from that is that Savage was not blacklisted. Now, of course, there was all that speculation about why Savage isn't in the company.
Yeah, many rumours about that one. I genuinely believe, I think everybody knows the story at this stage, that he was supposed to have had a little encounter with the boss's daughter of some sort when she was a young whippersnapper, and he was on his way up through the ranks in the WWF at the time. But I genuinely believe that it was good old Paul Levesque there, Trips, who put the hatchet in the road for him, because on that machoman.com site that he launched, he did call out quite a few people, Hogan being one. At the time, I don't think they were the best of buddies, and likewise he had some beef with Triple H for whatever reason. Wasn't afraid to really put the fact across that he didn't like Triple H, and that the only reason he was where he was because he was getting it on with Steph. And I think Trips, from his side, probably put that stumbling block in Savage's way from doing anything, coming back in Vince's ear and saying, look, this guy, he's a bit of a fruit bat, and I think he's got some serious beef with me, and having him around isn't probably going to be the best of ideas. That's what I genuinely believe. If he did do the deal with Steph, who knows, the top heads in the company seem to think so. A lot of people speculate that it didn't happen. I don't know if we're in any position to judge, but my guess would be probably, I would say it did go down, and Trips was the one who stopped the Macho Man from ever coming back to the WWE.
It's such a well-known rumour, isn't it? And really, the details are so well-known that it doesn't even need to be sort of painted, if you like. We don't need to tell you exactly what it was, but everything you said there, I think, is exactly what I feel about it too. Now, of course, in the Savage present day video you mentioned there, which is on YouTube, Savage talked about how Triple H saw him as a dinosaur of the business, and basically that kind of gave you an idea of maybe the tension and the real life heat between those two. Triple H and Stephanie, and it struck me today, again, they are the power house of that company. They're making the decisions now. McMahon sort of lessening his role somewhat. Triple H much more prevalent at those TV tapings now.
Yeah, Trips seems to have the power, and I think going forward, we've seen Vince take a bit of a back seat, and Trips, of course, has his new office up in Stamford. So if it was ever to be the case, it's just unfortunate that the likes of Coco Beware and Drew Carey and peeps like that are in the Hall of Fame, and we never got a Savage.
Exactly. This is where I think people have sort of push this now. Is Savage going to be in the Hall of Fame next year? We've campaigned for Jim Johnston. Randy Savage, I think at this point, needs to take priority. They got to get him in there. Of course, we heard about Angelo Poffo. That's Savage's father, who passed on just last year. Now we've got Lanny Poffo basically as the the guy from that Poffo wrestling dynasty. And I'm sure he's going to be talking a lot about this in the coming weeks. I'm looking forward to hearing more because, again, closure on this. You would like to know exactly what the deal was, but as I said earlier, is it a kind of a ghoulish thing to know that? Is there any point in knowing it? We're going to hope to talk to you tonight about that. So let's listen to you on Skype. You can message in now, IM, or call in, and indeed we will put you in a queue if you like. I know maybe people don't want to talk about Savage tonight. I know one or two of you guys will have a lot to say about the guy. Hi to Angry Marks and Drifter88 talking about this. I know you are a big fan of Savage and we've often talked to you about him. Not letting wrestlers push him around, it would have been a nice temp role for him. Maybe one last WrestleMania match, who knows, we will never know. So yeah, we're definitely going to get your take on this story later on. And Drifter also saying, I wasn't even a big fan of the Macho King, it's the Macho Man. Back when he was in orange and the stars on the shorts with the bandana instead of the cowboy hat, he was that in the championship run. Of course, that one, again, a very powerful memory. I think you might agree with me on this. When we would have sort of initially gotten access to it, I think when we did see those older eras, it was on VHS a little bit, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
It would have been events that we would have gone up to see, and that's where those memories come from, those biggest moments of that era for him.
Well, you would have had WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5, some of those Saturday night main events, and like you say, on VHS back in the days. I think when I think of Savage, it would be around that time period. WrestleMania 5, probably more so than anything, when the Mega Powers exploded, and it was him and Hogan for the title at the Trump Plaza, I believe, if I remember, if that was 5. I think it was 4 and 5 actually, but yeah, that's what comes to mind. More so probably than the Macho King, I have to admit. But I do remember with a smile on my face, the Macho King deal. It was good stuff.
Of course, Sensational Sherry, a part of that. Not to forget Elizabeth, who's also passed on, and those two now gone. Hard to believe because Savage was only 58. And I actually thought he might have been a bit older than that.
Me too.
I initially thought maybe mid-60s. And he's been gone for such a long time because I actually recall him being in TNA, and it was recorded. I didn't watch it at the time. But that, I think, may have been his last TV match, if I'm not wrong. It was
I do believe some sort of Victory Road kind of deal or something like that.
Yeah.
What is interesting as well, after watching some stuff back in the last couple of days, is that his WWF debut, he was 32, which is quite old when you think about it compared to a lot of guys these days, you know, like your Husky Harrises and your McGillicuddies. But 32 and debuting for the WWF, even though he had his run in the Indies and the kind of South or whatever, is kind of strange. I think all those years probably definitely made him come in with impact, because that I did watch his very first WWF match on Primetime Wrestling against some jabroni guy. But I mean, talk about a guy who already had the psychology side down to it and could garner that instant heat, just make the crowd hate him so much in those 10-15 minutes. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen someone do it so well, and I've never seen that match before until this weekend. But Christ, he just, I mean, people firing things of coke at him, popcorn, constantly throughout those 15 minutes. And if that wasn't one way to get heat and get you in there on that side, within 5 months he was in heavyweight title territory. So, you know, again, just proving just how good the guy was.
I'm thinking back to the Ric Flair angle when you had Flair trying to steal Elizabeth, and I recall that WWE magazine photo shoot. If I had the magazine here, I'd pull it out. But basically, you had the photo shoot with Flair with Elizabeth and Savage with Elizabeth. Same apartment, different times. It was genius. You knew they were there at the same time taking those photographs. But that was when the magazine actually did do sports entertainment storytelling. They actually kayfabed what went on pay-per-views, told you move by move how a guy got eliminated from Survivor Series and things like that. A far more imaginative era than maybe the stories are today, because even looking back to the 90s stories, I remember thinking when I saw the old stuff for the first time in a while that how bare it was, how basic, and actually it's a couple of years later now I realised that basic simple storyline was better than any of the attitude stuff that went off in so many directions.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And they could do it pretty much in the ring. You know, they didn't have to do anything else. It was a whole different. Again, getting back to that ring kind of psychology and how to work the crowd so well. I think that's why, not to go off track, but Taker and Michaels, why it is still one of those classics, because those guys came from that era and learned that way, and the kind of greats that were left in this era. But yeah, it just goes to show how removed we are from that kind of deal. Not totally removed, but definitely a good bit removed from that kind of deal.
And in some ways, maybe the company is trying to go back, and that's why I was thinking that, you know, with the colourful characters, the big guys, the monster heels that are kind of being pushed in now a little bit, we are looking at maybe almost what we had back then. And are they trying to recreate the 90s era once again at the start of this new decade? Would Savage have been perfect for that in his colourful clothes? You know, SP103 mentioned how good he was on commentary, and he could have gone right back to commentary.
I think a couple of people said they were always on edge when they were at the announce booth with Savage, because they just didn't know where he was going with stuff or what he would say next, and kept them on their toes a little bit. Was it the team of Perfect, McMahon and Savage? Was that one of the Raw broadcasting teams at one stage? Which is solid stuff if you look back. Definitely.
Macho Man and his many angles could be discussed forever, because he was a huge part of it. Hogan v Macho Man, that's another one you could go off on. All of these moments, I think, are why the guy now is being talked about, because people watch this. This was when the company had millions of eyes looking at it, whereas now you're talking about hundreds of thousands in this part of the world. I know in America it's somewhat gone down. They're not on NBC. You don't have Saturday night's main event to build these angles. And it just, again, makes you think back to that bigger era. It's always nice when you're watching something, you know millions of other people are sharing with you. When you know that a handful of people are watching Raw live, it's not as special. But then that's, I think, what we're not really going to have anymore, because it's not sort of a TV audience that are going to tune in now. Maybe they will when it's sports entertainment, but of course back then, Savage, it was all about wrestling.
It was all about wrestling, and you know, again, to get back to why I believe he was the greatest of all time, is that the guy could sell as well. He wasn't afraid to sell, unlike Hogan, who, you know, even when Savage won his first title, Hogan had to be in there, and Hogan had to be putting him over, and you could see on Hogan's face that, you know, I want that belt, and you know, as soon as I can get it back around my waist, I will have it. But stealing the spotlight, he didn't even let the guy give the ring to himself. He was in there with his chair swinging at whoever it was, DiBiase, and putting over Savage, putting over Elizabeth, and being in the way as per usual. But you wouldn't see that from a Savage. The guy, you know, constantly sold, I think, on a lot of his matches. The Steamboat one that everyone bangs on about, that is the greatest of all time, or at least he's greatest. I personally don't think it was. I think it was up there, but not the greatest. A lot of people say the Warrior match from WrestleMania 7 was one of the greatest. Probably for Warrior, it was probably one of his best matches, but not for Savage. To pick one of the best, you could probably be here all night. But I will say one that stands out is, or at least the program that stands out, even though I wasn't watching this deal at the time, but the Flair stuff on WCW, the Nitro, Bash at the Beach, those matches, and I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks back, where he wasn't afraid to, as much as they hate each other, he wasn't afraid to sell for Flair, and they would equally give and take if you watch those matches closely. So again, it just goes to show, why he was a step above the rest.
Absolutely, very sadly missed. You can see it there. Randy Savage, 1952 to 2011, and we are going to take your calls. Skype us now. The user is WrestleDope. I'm about to put on that Skype. If you want to get in touch with us tonight, we'd certainly love to hear your thoughts and memories on Savage. And I know everybody has some memory of Savage. I think even if you're a new wrestling fan, I'd say by now you've seen the guy somewhere. Of course, he hasn't been on WWE TV in such a long time now. I think it was something like 94 or 5 that he disappeared, and of course then went on to WCW. But when I think about the TV, I didn't really see the WCW era. Now, I did once or twice stick on a Thunder, and he was shouting and doing some stuff backstage. It was almost like the Attitude stuff. He did his stuff over there while they were up to other stuff on the WWF TV. But in that way, he extended his career, because the shelf life for the guy at the time in WWF was probably coming to an end. You know, when they put a guy on commentary, they're kind of thinking maybe he hasn't got
Let's
much.
pull it back a bit. I think he said, to go on record, that everybody else was making the jump. I think Hogan had gone over there, people like Scott Hall, and it was big bucks, and especially the way the WWF was going around that time, 94, 95, which was slowly but surely on a bit of a slope down, with the likes of Doink and Yokozuna and Repo Man and peeps like that floating around the place. So with all the money that was probably offered to him, it was a no-brainer really for the guys to go over there.
WCW, somewhere that the guy seemed to have maybe some nice creative control. I remember the speculation when you had the Savage and Okerlund and all these guys suddenly went Turner, and the talk at the time that of course they must have been getting a better deal, and of course I'm sure there was wrangling back and forward, but I think at the time there was a lot of kind of WWF anti-Savage stuff, where they kind of had guys dressed up as a Savage, dressed up as a Ted Turner. What did they say about Billionaire Ted back in the day? It got very nasty for a while, and maybe that was Vince kind of saying, look, this is a guy that maybe I believe I kind of put the spotlight on, thus I maybe created the character. It was sad, because that was, apart from the speculation about what really happened between him and Vince, etc., that was probably the second thing that maybe damaged the guy's chance of coming back. I mean, that thing went on till 2001, 2, and, that wasn't that long ago, really. It would have taken a while to cross the bridge and to maybe get more friendly again.
Yeah, I do remember when the E started running those little promo videos, taking the piss out of the old folks, and Hogan and Savage and Turner, maybe a couple of others. Do they call him the Nacho King? Was that the same thing? Or maybe I'm wrong. I was going to say, for Savage, some people had said it also, I think it was Piper, that there was a bit of an incident in a bar where Savage threw an old punch at Vince. For what reason, I'm not sure. Again, all this stuff's going to come out now, and what's true, what's not true is open to speculation, but yeah, it would be interesting to know at least why that went down. Although there is a funny video up there with him and Pat Patterson and Vince going to a Denny's after a taping, and
I have to see it.
Savage is putting over to whoever has got the camera to stay positive and stay clean and all that stuff.
I reckon he was a lot like that, maybe a lot like his gimmick, and I know shoot interviews have such varied opinions. A lot of ex-wrestlers, some are for the guy, but actually generally there's a lot of respect from what I've seen. I think people put the guy over all the time, because really in a way, like I say, it looked like Hogan did it all, but actually Savage was a huge part of it as well. I mean, who knows how much exposure even just the Slim Jim thing got them back then when they first did it. Edge was not a follow-up to Savage for the Slim Jim thing, And Edge was never as good as a Savage. That's the thing that I think it stands out most to me is you've lost guys now that were such huge quality. I've often said it, when you think about the people who are not there now. I think it was just about a week ago I saw a program, it was about games actually, and they were featuring the classic WrestleMania arcade game. Now the funny thing about it, at the end, it was interesting to note that in fact I think about 5 of the 6 or 7 guys had actually died from the game. You had guys like Crush in there, Mr. Perfect, Big Boss Man, so many people gone. But what really kind of struck me about this thing was, and it reminded me how much it's been done, is that there's almost a kind of a running joke in the media when they hear of a wrestler's death. It's kind of like, well, it's for this reason, well, it's for that reason. And that's kind of what was going on here. It was kind of a solemn tribute before you had the record scratch, and then there was the butt of the joke. So you'd wonder why guys would be like this. If they were like that about, we'll say, soccer guys, you wouldn't have the same, I think, allowance to get away with it. If you shoot it like that on rugby players, how long would you survive?
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, I think, for the general media to think that it's still a kind of a dirty word, isn't it, wrestling? They just think they're these meathead, jacked up, steroid freaks that are all complete boneheads, and some of them maybe, but not all of them.
That's right. Now, as I said, Skype is open. You can call us now. The user is WrestleDope. We're going to be talking about Savage for quite a while, and also we're going to look to get some thoughts as well before we wrap up for that break later, and indeed following that we'll have the Over the Limit. So we're going to talk that pay-per-view as well, not to completely ignore that, but I think this story has sort of jumped ahead of this pay-per-view. The big question tonight, and indeed going forward on Raw for TV on Monday, will they acknowledge this? Now, they have done so on WWE.com. They have mentioned it. There's been the story, the pictures, and they've kept people up to date. They recognise how important the guy is, whatever has happened in the past. But Umaga was working with the company not long before he passed away, and there was no mention on TV. So do you think it would happen on a pay-per-view, or would they hold it? I mean, it's the next thing they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was unfortunate for Umaga that they didn't put the guy over, especially that he was working for the company. But if you look what Savage has contributed to the business over the years, I think it would be foolish not to pay somebody respect tonight, and they can do it tomorrow as well. They should do both. It's going to take you could do it in a minute, 2 minutes out of 3 hours. It's not going to kill anybody, That's probably a bad choice of words, but you know what I'm saying.
That's exactly it. It's essential, actually. Now, there's not much you can do about it if they don't, unless you start a huge Twitter campaign and start, sending a lot of emails. I don't think it would do anything in the long term, but you'd wonder what they're going to do. Are they going to acknowledge it? I would actually like to say it should be on the pay-per-view and also on TV. There really should be a 5-minute cutaway here. Maybe they're going to save that sort of thing for a Hall of Fame. Maybe they know that that's where they're headed with this, that they are going to be putting the guy into 2012 Hall of Fame. Some people mentioned that, of course, you could also put Angelo Poffo in there. You could put his father in. Lanny Poffo could induct him. I'd say it's quite likely to happen. They're going to have a lot of pressure on them, actually, from people who've kind of, remembered him and have been shocked by this.
It's just not the same, I don't think, when the guys have passed away and they induct him. It's almost, for some, I think, a reason to put them in. Oh, they're dead now, let's put them in. I don't agree with that. I think he should have been put in a long, long time ago. And I think every year when Mania comes up, we've always said maybe this year we'll get Savage. It has to happen this year. I think most of the universe would probably agree with that one. But again, getting back to Coco Beware, he's in there. What has he done for the business?
I mentioned a while ago thoughts of maybe the guy working as a backstage hand, as helping young guys, as many of them do, the retired guys like an Arn Anderson, a Dean Malenko. They help out, and if it wasn't for people like those guys and Michael Hayes, then the quality would be even more.
Oh, Coco's a
atrocious.
backstager, is he?
Well, Coco, I don't think he ever did the backstage stuff, but he kind of he's had an ongoing relationship,
That's
and
right.
in a sense, it kind of makes you wonder. It's like this must be really bad that they wouldn't even think of capitalizing on the Savage thing for over 15 years. Really, I mean, they have had the DVD thing, and really, it's a pittance because they could have been milking that every single day. I honestly believe, give him a role on TV, and that merchandise, even in this day and age, I think would go right up to Cena levels. I really do, especially now with the kind of retro thing, and maybe bring him back. I'm sure people know this was a missed opportunity. I hope they do.
Yeah, I think so. It would be nice to see maybe his brother, I suppose, going forward, if that was the case. The Genius, putting him in there. Maybe Macho Man's Bird as well. The two of them could come out. The Frankie Coco's Bird was probably with him on his night, so it would only make sense, I think.
That's right, of course. Coco Beware, again, he got his position, and you have to wonder, I think maybe it was Honky Tonk Man who said no that year. He inducted someone, but he didn't want to go in. And he's often talked about why it's not that great to be in there. Of course, my big thing with that is, and I agree with what you say, that waiting until a guy is passed on is ridiculous. And actually, it looks even more like you're going to now capitalise. Now the guy is gone. You see that with musicians and people like that, people like a Johnny Cash. They pass on, and then immediately from there on in, the album sales go through the roof and things like that. So are they going to do stuff like that? Are they going to bring back merchandise? Probably not. The figure is coming, and I think that's going to sell well.
Yeah,
whether there'll be any other stuff after that, I'm sure it's probably up to his wife maybe.
Well, as well, it was good to see him in that All-Stars game for the Xbox and the PlayStation and all that. So he was on route, I think, some bit anyway, with the figure and the game. It's just unfortunate.
And hi to Fatboy Wrestling 10, and I know you wanted to give us a Skype call last week. If you want to do that now, the Skype line is 100% open, and you can add us. The user is WrestleDope. I think we already have you on there. And if you'd like to talk about Savage or Over the Limit, no need to keep it to Savage. I know a couple of you guys maybe don't have much to say on that, but more to say on Over the Limit. If you want to do that as well, we'll certainly open up the lines for that too. And indeed, we can talk about Savage all night, because like I said it before, that I've mentioned him a lot of times, more than many of the legends, maybe more than an Undertaker if I counted it. Maybe not, because I know he's been on all those pay-per-views. But just to let you know what's going to go on tonight, we're going to stay on for a good bit more, well, maybe about an hour or so, hour and a half, and taking your calls if you're there to actually make them, if you want to call in tonight. And then at next hour, we'll play Over the Limit 2010 live reactions from Justin.tv last year, and then onwards then to 1am for that live Over the Limit pay-per-view. An hour has gone by. I think, is that the first time we've said Over the Limit?
That's incredible, yeah.
I didn't want to go, I mean, Savage first and foremost, isn't it?
We got to prioritise here tonight. It's been a rough week in the HQ.
Over the Limit tonight. Maybe it is time to talk some matches, and we want to accept as well calls on the Savage topic as well, so you can work away on that. And Sonic, work away, call. I know sometimes you kind of maybe wait for us to call one of you individually out, but if you hear us saying you want what we want you to call, go ahead. I mean, it just doesn't matter. I mean, we'll take one by one.
I totally agree that we should continue on the Savage tribute and get the peeps' thoughts. I'm sure people across the world and all our peeps and regulars in the chat room will definitely have a story or two to tell, or even I'm sure some people mightn't have watched back in that time. But even if you have any memories and it's a recent memory or your thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. Now, new technology in play tonight, so some new titles, things like that. And of course that black team, it is a black Sunday, if you like. It's not as happy as perhaps we usually would find ourselves, because again, that Savage thing, like a real shock. to the system when I did hear that, and I certainly am going to keep an eye on the dirt sheets tonight. Hopefully they'll provide us with some real information about what the story is developing like. Now I know, I think Mike mentioned that the autopsy report is up there. We're going to find out if that is there on whichever of the sites here. And thank you to everyone joining us here tonight. So let's talk to you in the room, Dave Birmingham. Jimmy Hart has to be on the list to induct Macho Man. Good choice, actually.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as well, Miss Elizabeth no longer with us with her deal in Lex and the overdoing it, let's put it that way, that day or night or whenever it was. Sherry, another one, unfortunately. It seems like, actually, I read something about one era of the NWO where pretty much every single one of them have hit the bucket, be it Crush, Savage, fuck, I can't even remember who else, but pretty much the whole lot of them.
Absolutely, indeed, and certainly tonight's Savage tribute. I knew that it was going to be Savage. I know you felt the same. It was going to be Savage because it's someone that you can talk forever about, and I'm trying to now think to NWO days and his role in that, because what a huge part, again, he played in making sure that that stable was over as you possibly can be. It was just actually recently that R-Truth kind of mimicked what looked like a Savage thing to me when he stood in the audience on that kind of high part of the arena. Now, Savage used to do that a lot. I can remember he would often be way back in the rafters shooting on somebody down in the ring. It felt like a Savage tribute from R-Truth, but luckily, of course, R-Truth is he on it? He is, actually. He's Truth Mysterio tonight. First match mentioned from Over the Limit.
Here we go. And many more to mention, but we will get there. We will get to the Over the Limit stuff.
Absolutely. Sonic, are you having troubles with the stream? I hope you can see us tonight. Either way, I will write this in the chat if you can't see us, because I know sometimes you get some odd encoding issues on the Just In front, but I would say either change browser or refresh and you should be back, because we are definitely live. So what am I typing here? Just to tell you all to Skype us, like I say, at any point we can go on. But yeah, it is certainly nice, and of course these last few weeks have been great. We've had many people coming on. It's certainly, it's been fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was not here last week, but I was on vacation at McTaker's ranch there, holidaying with the peeps. Good weekend as well, actually. But yeah, I did see it, and everyone did a great job. So from everyone, Drifter, your new, or not your new buddy, but a new guest, Chicken, respect to that guy. Miker, what's that chap again? Not Matty P&O, but
we had Mac Attack,
there
Davey,
you go.
we had certainly
Davey, yeah.
many people.
And actually, Phil, good stuff, very insightful. I really liked the contribution last week.
Absolutely. Now joining us on the line should be Sonic Akuma. Have we got you?
Waiting.
You're with us. How are you doing this weekend? And here comes your...
Oh, good!
Excellent. We can
Good,
hear you.
guys.
How are you doing now? I know that you would have been a fan back in the day, and I'm sure you are well aware of Randy Savage. Now, what are your thoughts on what has happened this past few days?
When I heard about it, I didn't see it on the news, and I saw a couple of friends on Facebook posted about it. Right, and I was with someone, and somebody else, that person looked on her phone and told me what actually happened.
Yeah, it was one that I think shocked a lot of us. It came as a huge surprise. Did you believe it when you heard it at first? Because, of course, there's been so many rumours, hasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Guys being said that they are gone, but they're not.
No, I thinking, no, I swore, no, I was right, it was legit.
That's right. It certainly shocked to the core a lot of people. Did you have memories of Savage that you wanted to share? I mean, what stands out from you from his early days?
Absolutely. There's quite a few. Like, I seen him in the Slim Jim commercials back in the day. Actually seen him in the ring.
Seen him in the ring, exactly. That is what we often get with you, Sonic. We'll have to give you a redial. We'll do that straight away, though. Sometimes the old audio cuts out, but we'll get straight back to him. Let's call him once again.
I think
not
once
sure where that is, yeah.
we're pulling in some peeps as well tonight. Maybe we could try to get some tributes in a Savage impersonations. I know a lot of people could do some good work.
And I'm back.
Excellent. We don't want to stop you in your tracks. What were you saying? You were sharing memories of Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, like I say, from the Slim Jim commercials to seeing him in Spider-Man to actually seeing him in the ring.
Would you have seen him in a live event or just on TV, Sonic? TV. What was it? Bonesaw McGraw, was that his name in Spider-Man?
Yes.
It's good stuff.
Spider-Man, let's not forget that guy had that huge, well, he had a huge part in that movie, and I think at the time people were saying it's movie time for Savage now, and honestly, he's such a character actor. You could put him in so many roles. The eyes, even with the sunglasses on, you're hitting a whole other dimension of the guy, aren't you?
Absolutely. I'm surprised he wasn't used in a lot more, but whoever did cop what he had to contribute and got him into Spider-Man, I think they deserve certainly a pat on the back.
Absolutely.
I applaud it, actually. And I actually saw it in theater, and I tried to figure out who played the character. It took me a bit to process, but when you realize it was the Macho Man.
Indeed.
When you think of favorite feuds with Randy, what comes to mind off the top of your head?
Favorite feuds? Good question. There's a lot.
Of course.
From the ultimate.
Yeah, memories. Go ahead.
From the Ultimate Warrior to feuding with NWO.
It's funny, yeah. A lot of people have mentioned the Warrior one as being something they were very fond of. I can't really recall it all too well, to be honest with you.
It's definitely the one that I know there was the match, but what was the build to that? I know there was sensational Sherry stuff. Royal Rumble 91 actually would place it for you.
Yeah, it was definitely 91. I do remember Sherry and Warrior having some sort of a deal.
Yeah, with the jacket.
Yeah. But that's about all. I must look it up again because it's been quite some time. But it would have been after the Hogan Warrior deal at WrestleMania 6, wasn't it? Just some bit close after that.
I was going to say it, that so many of those Mania matches that had Savage, they all bleed into the next one because it was literally major legend each time, and it took me a while to remember that he had that Ultimate Warrior match, and you know that angle you mentioned where you had Sherry cutting the promo at Royal Rumble, and that Warrior jacket that she was taking off the guy, then you had the Savage attack, and things like that were just very memorable.
It just comes to mind that wasn't she trying to smooth over Warrior, and she was kind of I suppose getting on the flirty side of things with him, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And Warrior was, I think, maybe a little excited, but not too excited about the whole thing, which probably led to the match.
Sonic, do you remember the feud with Jake Roberts where you had that snake bite?
That was within the mid or late 80s, right?
Indeed, it was so legit, wasn't it? It was realistic and real. I think it was real.
I think it was a real bite, yeah.
Well, I couldn't I couldn't remember seeing it because I was born in '87.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we saw a lot of that stuff on tape, and then, joining maybe 89, 90, 91, and that would be sort of maybe his biggest time, certainly the biggest push worldwide commercially for WWF.
Yeah, yeah. My dad kind of missed him too, and like we watched the product together back in the day.
Very good. Did your old man pass any comment on the passing of Randy on Friday?
He was like rest in peace and that type of thing.
Yeah, certainly. I know. I was amazed at the attention the entertainment news sites like TMZ were reporting this, and I certainly kind of again realised what an impact he had, not just on wrestling but entertainment in general. He's a character that I think many people could have done so much more with, but like we did say, very reclusive, hard to get for interviews, and even harder to get him to appear at a wrestling show. But it's a very sad moment. I mean, Sonic, we've lost so many guys from those early 80s and 90s eras. Any other guys?
And most of them are under 50 when they passed.
Exactly, yeah.
Some shocking ones, alright, in fairness.
It's becoming a very sad trend now.
Mm.
It's something that, as I said, I think people are kind of expecting.
Most of they didn't, and a lot of them didn't go out like Macho Man did.
That's right. Do you remember the Slim Jim thing? I'm sure over in the States that commercial was big time.
Without a doubt.
See, that gets the
Without a
biggest,
doubt.
I think a lot of people react more to the Slim Jim thing, It was huge, certainly bigger than I think we might have realised over at this
Yeah,
part.
see, I don't think we got the Slim Jim commercial, did we?
No, we didn't actually.
I think we might have seen it on the...
Maybe on kids' TV, maybe.
Really, yeah.
I could be wrong now.
My only recollection of it is the WWF magazine there from the late 80s, where there would have probably been a snapshot of him putting the product over, but I don't think... I could be wrong now, maybe they did show it on the UK TV, but as far as I remember, I can't remember even seeing it to this day.
That's it. Now, I just thought it was funny, Sonic. I could see the reaction when you heard Slim Jim. I mean, that's certainly got to be a childhood memory that would have stuck out for you. Were you a fan of Savage at the time, a fan of wrestling when that Slim Jim thing was on?
Oh, yeah, I was staying in it. I liked the product, but I was in and out of the product for most of the 90s.
This is it, yeah. I think, like ourselves, it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, we took a bit of a break too at some point, mid 90s, maybe early 2000s, if I remember correctly.
That's it. Now, changing up gears, Sonic, over the limit tonight. I'm just going to ask, what matches are you looking forward to?
Oh, the Intercontinental title match. Kelly's in action tonight. Definitely looking forward for that. The I Quit match.
Yeah, I think
Definitely the world title match.
it's going to be a tough one to make Cena say I quit. I don't think... has anyone done it yet? I don't think they have.
I'm not certain. I certainly couldn't say offhand. You almost started me off on the Wade Barrett Ezekiel thing. I can't wait to talk about that one. That one I'm tipping as match of the night already. I'm looking forward to Wade Barrett Ezekiel.
They're giving Zeke the spot.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're giving him the spot.
Love it. But
so we'll get to that.
We certainly will. Ezekiel Jackson, this is a guy who's getting a good push now.
I agree.
Indeed, we're going to hopefully see Ezekiel come out on top tonight at Over the Limit, as tonight is going to be a big pay-per-view night. I think we might speak to you later if you're around. Are you going to be watching the pay-per-view here, Sonic?
I will still be in chat.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Well, we will talk to you soon. Again, good to hear from you and your thoughts. We'll speak to you in a little bit.
Take it easy.
And I'll still be on standby.
Excellent.
Good
We look
stuff.
forward to hearing from you a little later. Now, just like Sonic, as you can see right behind us, you can Skype us. User is WrestleDope. I think we've got Captain Charisma lined up. And again, Captain Charisma making his debut there a few weeks ago now. And it was a big thing because, I mean, this is a guy who would never come on, you know?
Yeah, it's great to see everybody come on. And even last week, I think it was like 9, maybe 10 callers in total, which was incredible. The 1 week I'm on holidays with those two clowns. But not to worry, at least this week we'll pick it up.
Absolutely. Of course, just to say hi to Phil. Phil, we'll get back to you. We have you in that queue. We'll certainly we'll await Captain Charisma. I know we caught you a bit on the hop there, but Captain Charisma, are you there? I think we have you. Hello there. We'll give him a second. We'll let him on there. But I know we had some issues with his audio last week, and he had to do a lot of work to get on there last week with the laptop. But
not to worry.
Yeah, we'll leave you there a second. If you can't, we certainly can't hear you. If you can hear us, then it might be that issue once again, Captain Charisma.
Yeah, sometimes it can be those settings can be a bit of a pain in the ass. But if you go up to that tools option and into the audio settings, just have a mess around.
I think I can actually hear you very, very low. So I think it probably is the audio option setting again. Unfortunately, I wish I could just remote desktop and
crank everything up to the max. We might get you.
Yeah, because we have this, so certainly not that. So look, we'll reconnect. We'll talk to Phil. We'll give you a chance to have a look at that. Don't put yourself to too much hassle. I know it was a bit of an awkward deal last week. So let's give Phil a buzz here. I know Phil just.
Hey, how you doing, Phil?
Hello there.
Freak out, freak out, freak out.
Good stuff. I knew we'd get one. Hopefully we get some more.
Excellent.
Hey, we've got... sweet.
There we have
That's what you need there.
Phil, we got to get that on screen. Phil with Macho Man on the T-shirt. And what a classic T-shirt
That's
that is.
actually my favourite of the Macho Man T-shirts too.
Everybody wants to know what the filibuster thinks about the Macho Man. The fact of the matter is, maybe I'll shake your hand, maybe I'll slap your face, Hulk Hogan.
That's classic stuff. Classic stuff. It's a nice T-shirt, actually. I will say. I have to pick myself up one of those.
That T-shirt goes beyond vintage. It goes beyond old school. That's original. Back from 1986 when the Macho Man first introduced himself to the World Wrestling Federation.
It's classic stuff. Classic stuff.
It's beyond classic. I don't know, how old is that T-shirt? I mean, that is good stuff. And there we have you, as we say hello to Phil. First time we have you on video. Great to have you here. A shocking weekend, a saddening weekend for wrestling fans.
Yeah, I'm as big a Macho Man fan as there is. Plain and simple, without tooting my own horn, I think when the word came in, there were a lot of people that the second they heard about that, they thought about me, aside from the fact that I've been known to do that impression over the years. And this T-shirt is vintage. This isn't original. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that it finally fits me. Because this thing is made out of friggin' tissue paper at this point. But you know what? Macho Man, I don't know if there's a bigger Macho Man mark on this planet. I love the madness.
Well, it's good to have somebody like yourself on board tonight. If it's going to be a tribute, like we say, and it has been since the start, and we continue to go as long as we can with it. Yeah, I mean, we must have had. That's probably been through the wash more than enough times. I'd say that shirt at this stage.
Oh, sweet stuff from Jesus, I tell you. But
that's good stuff.
So many.
No, it's. I think obviously a lot of the crew here are going to be a little bit younger, and they'll have an idea who the Macho Man is, and especially with a lot of the words that will be said about him. But unless you were around to see it, you don't realize how truly ahead of the game he was and the impact. And you guys are on the same level as I am. We kind of grew up in the same atmosphere, the same time frame, watching wrestling. That if Hogan is number one, if you talk to your parents, you talk to people who aren't wrestling fans, and you ask them, mention wrestlers, they will say Hogan first and foremost, but 1A is probably Macho Man.
That's exactly it. Hogan was the guy that people often think built the company, but like I was saying earlier, I really feel Savage was a huge part of it, and probably didn't get as much credit as he deserved over the years. And certainly I think that's demonstrated by the non-inclusion of the guy in company activities. I mean, he was just, rumoured for all sorts of reasons to be out of sorts, if you like, with Vince. But what's your take on that? I mean, do you believe that story, or what do you think maybe was the cause?
Have we discussed what the story is? I don't think anybody. If you listen to the dirt sheets, then the obvious rumor is that at some point the Macho Man took advantage of an impressionable Stephanie and maybe even deflowered her. I don't believe that. I think a lot of what's happened over the years was, part of it was timing. Vince has proven he'll do business with anybody as long as they're willing to do business. And there's a good friend of mine. So, like I said, there's a lot of people that the second that they heard that sent me text messages and sent me Facebook messages, and even in our fantasy baseball league, everybody in the league has changed the name of their team to a macho theme. My fantasy team is now named the Sarasota Madness. So I don't know if I believe in that as much as you have to take him with a grain of salt and recognize where he was, where he came from. And, I've had people tell, oh, he was crazy. Well, he definitely was, but he was a different kind of crazy. And so I think he also recognized, though, that he was a draw and he was good at what he was. He just kind of, as time went on, I think he overpriced himself. And I think that more than anything is why Vince didn't bring him back. He wanted to demand more than he could draw, so they couldn't come to an agreement. Do I believe all the rumors? No. But it's nice. It's a nice little story. So
it's a funny one. I think probably blown out of proportion, but who are we to say? We didn't live it, and we weren't in those times either. I know somebody went on record there in the last couple of days saying that when getting back to the money side of it, that he had so much money at one point because he stayed in the cheaper hotels and was smart about it in the early days, and not so much being a stinge ball with it, but he played as much as he played it hard and heavy. He was smart about it, and put the money aside for where he was before he died.
Yeah, and that's where I don't get offended often, and believe me, the second that I heard that he suffered a heart attack and then, ultimately died because of the car crash, I know everybody wants to look and go, it's the steroids, it's this, that, or the other thing. What I've heard about Macho is that he wasn't big into the partying. He wasn't big into a lot of the other stuff that the guys were into. And so it doesn't exonerate him. It doesn't mean that the steroids weren't a part of it. But in and of themselves, I'm not, you can take a look at this. You can see here I'm clearly not and have never been a steroid user. Anything managed properly, you can survive. I mean, that explains why why some people live to the age that they do. The biggest problem with most of these guys that die early is, steroids are in there. They get addicted to painkillers. It's the partying. It's all that. It's the entire lethal cocktail. With him, I'm sure, did he leave the cleanest lifestyle? Probably not. But for some of the media outlets, they want to drop on that or go right to that. That's how they draw their ratings. That's what they want to do. That's within their means. But what I do have to give credit to is some of the other established media outlets have been showing the respect that they should. was listening to the Jim Rome program I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he has a syndicated radio program in North America. He's spot on sometimes. You can take some of his stuff with a grain of salt. He has a tendency to repeat himself, so he is both redundant and repetitive. So I got the text message probably at 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, our time here, from a few different people. By 1:30, he came out and he had the spot on. I was like, and he didn't go the condescending route. He gave respect. He said, you know what? I know that a lot of my fans are wrestling fans, and the impact that this guy had, he was the consummate professional. He was the consummate performer. He truly was. He was above and beyond. And I love the madness. That's what it comes down to.
It was everything, wasn't it? I mean, it was in-ring quality, it was entertainment, it was that ability to be on an advertising campaign and make a huge splash. And we did talk about how that Slim Jim thing was such a huge factor in getting the guy's character so even further over than he was before. But again, what memories I suppose stick out, what angles? We mentioned quite a few: the Macho King, the Jake Roberts. I know coming from that classic era, maybe it was one of those Warrior feuds, but maybe you've several.
Oh, geez. For me personally, and because it's a running joke within our crew, and because I would be known every now and then to just bust out some madness. So some of the I don't even want to necessarily say lesser known quotes, but I guess a lot of them revolve around the mega powers exploding. So for me personally, and with some good friends of mine, every now and then we could just be sitting there. It doesn't matter what we're doing, if we're watching a sporting event or whatnot, and nobody's saying anything. All of a sudden I would bust out and go, "Will, you know what? You come to me like a man. For the title, I beat you 1, 2, 3. That would be okay." I love the quotes from him. I just loved it where he would come with it. He'd bring that, or, thinking, Hulk Hogan. Maybe I'll shake your hand. Maybe I'll slap your face. The lines for him were epic. I loved the Mega Powers explode, and that was the peak for me. The first pay-per-view that I ever saw live was WrestleMania 5. Now, what I will qualify is, as a child, that I was probably a bigger Hulkamaniac. But I always respected Macho. It's as time progressed that I looked at and realized that the guy was probably more talented. That he was layered in some ways, but he didn't necessarily have that pure mass market appeal that a Hogan would. I get that. Hogan had every part of the presentation. And I even had this discussion with a friend of mine yesterday where we were talking about, because for me, Real American, that song it's the campiest. It's pure trash, but it's one of my favorite songs of all time. It gets you so hyped up. Yeah. And like a couple weeks ago when Obama came out at the at the roast for him to that was a mark out moment. And then friggin' Osama bin Laden gets captured or killed the next night. I was like, there's no small coincidence in that. That song still gets me hyped up. And so then, when you take a Macho Man who came out to Pomp and Circumstance, most people probably don't even realize that's the name of the song. They just think about it as the, the graduation song. But he took something and made it work. Everything he did, he took it and made it work. And just even talking about him now gets me thinking about it. Like when I graduated high school, guaranteed, I remember the person next to me, when they played the song, they leaned into my ear and went, "It's the Macho Man, yeah!" How big his impact was on our generation, and it's the guy. I hope he gets the credit he deserves moving forward. And even I've gone back and watched some of the videos now, and as much as I loved him, didn't even realize it. He was revolutionary. He he was doing stuff that can never be replicated.
It's so true. I think for many people, and I definitely would be one of these that for many years would have said Flair was probably the greatest of all time, be it promos, be it whatever. And I mentioned earlier, after watching, and I think I put it on to you as well, it was actually a WCW home video there from about 96, 97 called Behind the Madness, which if you haven't seen it, and same for the peeps in the chat room, is unbelievable from start to finish. The guy literally, even off camera in the interview, just gimmicked and working non-stop and so brilliantly, like never ever broke kayfabe in that whole time. Every part they interviewed about stayed constantly in character. Even when he broke to talk about something that was outside of the business, he would still stay in kayfabe. And just after watching the hour or two of it, I was like, I've never seen somebody do it so well. I think for me, from then, I was like, I'm all about the Macho Man going forward. There's no one ever going to come close to being at that level for me.
Oh, you can go back and you can watch it now, and you look at it, you realize he got it. He took his whole craft seriously, but he never took himself too seriously. Mm-hmm. And that's why he could roll with the punches and recognize that even when, like, a broken play, there was an opportunity. Like one of the little videos that I saw where, Mean Gene, well, if you can, my next guest here, the Macho Man in the past year has gone 180. So the Macho Man, and I guarantee they probably didn't even rehearse this beforehand, goes 180. And in fact, on top of that, he's made a 360, spins around, does it, and then made another 180. Like, he was actually listening and involved, and just, you can tell that his mind was always working. Mm-hmm. And he knew the camera was on, but was probably throwing shit out. And sometimes maybe he was just trying to entertain himself first. Realize that's the way it works. Instead of going out there with a plan, and, you have to have a little bit of a plan. But instead of just trying to get out what you want to get across, pick up on stuff and look and go, yeah, roll with it. Just roll with it. You know what? Every wrestler, and hopefully now maybe some things will happen. The good will come from it, because a lot of these younger guys who probably haven't watched him will go back and look at it and go, it was incredible. As long as they don't try to replicate him, but learn from it. So
you've summed it up in so many words that it's perfect. I mean, what you said there, really, it's the words of a fan, and like you said earlier, we come from that same era. As you say, a lot of people may not have been around for the guy to kind of really to have experienced what a huge impact he had on it. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't have said it better myself, really.
Just when you brought up exactly when you said Mean Gene, I actually, when I heard the news, about an hour or two later, I went to see if I could find if he had a Twitter account, Mean Gene, because I just wanted to see or hear some. I don't think he's even come out and said anything about it, but like you say, those promos with him and Mean Gene, they made the whole Macho Man gimmick so solid over the years. And if it wasn't for Mean Gene and those, I don't think. Well, maybe he probably would have still done it, but they had such a chemistry. And even over the WCW times with Gene as well, that they really drove it home. And watching the expressions from Mean Gene sometimes, where he's got that smirk and he's just trying to hold in from bursting his ass laughing at Savage. It's just hilarious to watch.
So I do want to turn the tables a little bit here in terms of, because and it's great you guys give me the chance to come on here and rant on. You do give your opinions on a lot of things. I want to give you guys the opportunities to be fans here. Like you say, I'm 31 years old. You guys are probably in the same kind of age range.
Indeed, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me your favorite memories of the Macho Man. It's not too often, and especially as time has gone on, and I think there is a trend when I call in here weekly that a lot of times I do rant on about the older stuff. But the Macho Man is the perfect example where it can't be replicated, but I'd love to hear you guys be fans for a little bit here. And tell me your favorite Macho memories,
Well, you know, some of them, again, we might have said, but I will go back to the snake bite. And certainly I think we could go on this a while. But just to say to you, everything, you know, guys say in a call, we like to hear as much as possible from yourselves, because we would equally feel that we're yakking on and sometimes often accused of that. But no, in terms of fan moments, let's talk about, for example, the snake bite. Remembering how legit it was, how scared I was, how actually I thought, along with the Hogan earthquake stuff, that all of this had real impact on these guys' lives. And it was only recently I saw the Hogan thing where mail into Hogan, you know, he's been destroyed by earthquake. Of course, not to forget that, you know, Savage did some stuff with earthquake. He did stuff with so many people. Of course, I talked about the Flair thing. That was very important. You know...
Can't interrupt you quickly, though.
Yes.
With Hogan and Earthquake, did you send in a fan letter wishing that the Hulkster would get better?
Yes.
Guilty.
Yeah. I
still
think we probably walked up to the thing and sent it, you know, both of us.
Possibly. I do remember.
Did you have a Hulk Hogan friendship bracelet?
No, that I didn't.
I don't think we could get them for whatever reason because we were over here, but I certainly did. Right, and I told this story under the influence there sometime to some peeps about 2 years ago. They thought it was the funniest thing probably of all time.
I remember the you know, speaking about merchandise and things like that, of course Macho Man had so many action figures. I remember always really wanting that Macho King figure. You know, it was the elusive one over here. It was like the green $1 million man. You couldn't always get a hold of him, you know. And that was one thing that I remember. I remember when a guy got that.
Didn't
it was
we
big,
have...
you know?
What was it called? Wrestle Buddies. Was it a Savage
yeah, that's
one?
right. There was a Savage.
The Savage one. Yeah. We used to kick ass.
They had that.
Beat that thing around the place big time.
You know, the merchandise these days, it just isn't as quality. It doesn't have those gimmick characters. I don't think I could ever buy it a lot. But you know, I mean, I think it's angles that stick out for me. And like I say, I was really, and I'll give you an opportunity to talk.
No,
but
go
it's the
for it,
Savage thing, you know.
But
it's the Macho King thing that for some reason that is what I remember most, because for me at that point he was like a futuristic character for some reason. He was a mixture of the kind of old legacy of having a king in wrestling, but he's also kind of a crazy, off the wall, colourful,
just nuts,
mad guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Nuts. That's a good point, actually. I never saw it like that. For me, you know, I said without having watched it at the time, I did like the Savage Flair WCW deal that they had on match-wise, and that whole angle that, you know, I saw on a recently released DVD. But if I had to say the memory that sticks out most would have to be WrestleMania 5, because it was my first... See, I was trying to remember this over the weekend. Was 4 or 5 my first pay-per-view? But I do remember the excitement, and I just couldn't wait to see Savage and Hogan get it on. I can remember where I was. I can remember, as you say, the Hogan music where you get that adrenaline rush. I think it was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 or something, but just so excited and glued to the TV. Like, I mean, the whole world could have come down around me. All I cared about was, again, I was on the Hogan side of it, but all I wanted to see was Hogan take that belt. And that was probably my big introduction into the whole world of wrestling, I think, from the get-go.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was the first pay-per-view I ever saw live. Went and saw it on closed circuit. Again, for those who don't know, they used to have, like probably most towns, your local arena would bring in the big screens and you would get charged to go see this thing on closed circuit TV. And so I liked Macho. And in fact, my best friend was a Macho Man fan, but I was a Hulkamaniac. And everybody was stoking me up because they knew how much I was into it. But yeah, exact same. That's the, you know, to your description of that is exactly the same as mine in terms of how jacked up I was for that. Probably at 10 years old. Yeah. And not to go Rain Man on this, April 2nd, 1989, because
I was actually 8. I was 8.
If I did research that, I would remember that date, which is sad. But it was an incredible experience, and you know, it's part of that cannot be replicated. Part of that will never be back. But if you didn't live through that, then you don't understand. And especially as people, where I work at, I work in in an environment where a fairly large place. We probably have 80, 85 employees. And so, like I said, Friday afternoon, I work as an outside sales representative. So I spend part of my time on the road, part of my time in the office. And so I found out about it from friends of mine who sent me the messages. And when I came in, I automatically knew there were some people that if I tell them, would get it automatically. And so the second I went to them, like, you could tell they were like me. They were taken aback. I almost started crying. Like, I went, Macho Man, no, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And other people, but everybody I talked to, even if you went to them and said, Macho Man, had a thing with, oh, yeah, oh, no. Like, it's...
Well, I have to say, yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but it was you hear celebrity deaths and people maybe you might have looked up to, but a lot of people said it hit them hard, and I actually did feel it. I was kind of like, it was a kind of a childhood thing, isn't it? You're looking back to how important he was,
Part of my childhood died, and then part of also the fact that, maybe it's all because I've mastered the impression when I was younger. I used to coach baseball with some younger kids, and that's how I connected, because, I was always the crazy guy who did the Macho Man impression. I had a Macho Man keychain, and, the guy said, touch the madness. It's just, like I said, I love the Macho Man. I can't, I don't know if people really understand what it means. Now, that being said, not going off on the crazy fan mode. People are human. People do what they do. But his impact on the craft of wrestling and what he did and being a consummate entertainer is bar none. And so, if nothing else, I think I've said it before, hopefully people will look at it and say for the next crop of wrestlers, and a lot of them are already out there, watch him, learn from him. This guy knew his character. This guy knew what he was about. He brought it, and he was crazy. But maybe he was so crazy he was a genius. I don't know.
This is it.
Absolutely.
I think even more so with that said, he knew his surroundings no matter where he was, and always took advantage of them, And even what's funny is we laughed about it a while ago when you said even though he's gone now, the stuff continues with this whole talk of the big deal about the Rapture yesterday and how Savage stopped it with a big elbow.
That one made me laugh.
That stuff was just priceless.
I'd like to believe it.
I've got to give credit to a good friend of mine, Brian Jones, who I'm trying to get him to start watching and maybe calling in. But his post on Facebook was the Macho Man was too cool for the Rapture. He didn't want a job to it. So
Phil, that's on that note. We will say goodnight to you, and if you're around for Over the Limit tonight, we'd certainly love to have a chat with you if you're watching that. But again, thanks so much for sharing those memories of Savage. Excellent
Sounds
stuff.
like a plan. I will call back in later, gentlemen. I'll give you advance warning that this week on Raw, I actually watched it and jotted down some notes.
No problem.
Good man yourself.
It could be entertaining. So,
excellent.
We do enjoy that stuff.
Phil, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Perfect,
thanks
gentlemen.
again to Phil.
Good stuff.
And I just got him on the Savage impersonation, but we'll get more Savage from Phil later. And as we now head up towards that next hour, and at some point we're going to take a little bit of a break. You can Skype us now, still open, and let's try Captain Charisma once again. Captain Charisma, hello there. Can you hear us this time? We've got Captain Charisma video.
Let's see if we got some audio.
Right, and we got Drifter queued up. I think, we've got Captain Charisma. Hello there to you.
Hiya.
How are you doing? We can see you, we can hear you. How are things? It's great. You have the old webcam working.
Yeah, I can't see you, but...
No worries.
That's
me.
Yeah, it doesn't work when we're on the Justin. We can't get the video feed out. But let's talk about
Bit,
Randy Savage now. Of
bit
course,
close.
yes.
Bit close on the video.
All right, you have video as well, have you?
No, my video on your Wrestle Dope.
Oh yeah.
Irene, it's
Well,
really
it should be
close
fine now. It should be nicely framed and all good. In fact, we can even put you on the screen there. Well,
That's
yeah.
better.
Yeah.
There we go. Too much for you.
So again, let's talk Randy Savage, as we have been all night. I know now you're younger, you may not have been around in those days, but what were the memories you have of the guy? What was your impression of him before all of this?
Well, I said earlier in the chat I didn't really want to sound like a desensitised twat, but it didn't affect me at all. Not like Chris Benoit's death or Eddie Guerrero's death, where it really, really, really affected me. But it's a shame he's gone. But oh yeah, hang on, what's that? Heath Slater. I got a comment in the chat saying I look like Heath Slater. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, I know. Look, I totally get where you're coming from. There were people, like you say, the Eddie Guerrero and Benoit thing probably had more of an impact. Those guys being a lot more current, and I can understand your take on it. We can move on to Over the Limit, which of course is on tonight. Now I know you were telling us last week that you can't be Skyping through the pay-per-view. We have that deal where it's 4 a.m. and stuff. But I was supposed to ask you, like we haven't asked anyone else tonight, your favourite upcoming matches on this pay-per-view. What do you think it's got promise?
Wade Barrett's going to win against Ezekiel Jackson. Is Karma in the match?
Not yet. No, certainly not.
I don't believe so. I think it's
Kelly, Brie Bella.
Yeah, Kelly and Brie for the title, but I'm sure Karma might make some sort of an appearance, as she has done in previous weeks. How do you find her? What do you make of Karma since she's arrived?
Impressive. It's a shame she didn't keep the Awesome Com name, but what can you do? I don't know. What to really think of Karma. Well, at least it's something different than the average diva.
Maybe it's under copyright to TNA, still the Awesome Kong name, possibly.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it probably is. I think if we went back to like 99 or something, you can get away with it.
That's it. So it's actually ending up to be a bit of a stacked card. 6 or 7 matches on there, extra ones added during the week. Maybe that's where we take it now to talk a little bit about those matches, of course, before we take that traditional break. And tonight, Over the Limit 2010 reactions. I don't know how interesting they're going to be. I can't remember what the hell the matches were, but we'll do that until live pay-per-view time later on, and taking Skype calls as well. So I suppose Brie Bella, Kelly, that is what it is. Matches like Ezekiel and Wade Barrett. Now, for me, for some reason, you mentioned about Ezekiel getting a big push now. I think this guy's got a lot of promise. Now, I know people might laugh at that, but in that kind of top babyface role, why not? I mean, guys in the past, maybe they weren't as technical as perhaps they became, and they were as successful. So why not for that guy, Do you think Ezekiel has something, or am I seeing something that isn't there?
Well, like I said last week, it's a less athletic version of Ahmed Johnson. I see absolutely nothing in Ezekiel Jackson, to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the big guys. The only guy I can see as being legitimate is probably Mason Ryan, but Jackson, Intercontinental Champion, they don't mix.
It was definitely strange, I think, to see him get that much solo TV time to cut that promo now that he's kind of distanced himself from the core and he's out on his own. I thought he did a fair job, in fairness to him. I don't think it was the worst thing I've seen from him. And maybe they're just probably testing the water to see if he can roll with it. I know sometimes it takes that to kind of identify if it's worth sticking with or if it's worth giving him a shot with the belt going forward. As far as tonight, I think it's probably early days for him to take it from Wade Barrett, so I would agree with you that Barrett will probably retain, but I don't think it's over by any means. I'm sure it'll continue on into the next pay-per-view, and maybe giving him a shot with the strap might make sense, but I'd probably prefer to see Barrett go into an angle with Daniel Bryan for the belt, coming into the summer and maybe leading up to SummerSlam.
You know, I saw something this week on SmackDown when you had Kane, Big Show, and Ezekiel Jackson. Again, we mentioned last week this maybe thought of this big man era coming back, and again, there's someone who can slot right in, push him to the moon if you want. I mean, I know, again, people would disagree, but it's the size thing, and maybe I'm kind of going back now to what it was that originally kind of had me watching, and maybe it was the kind of larger than life personalities, people like that. I know it's a lot to be said about Ezekiel Jackson all the same, but again, I marked when I saw that on the card. I couldn't tell you why. Moving on then, more matches. Again, I haven't got this in front of me. Can you think of anything offhand, Captain Charisma?
Well,
I've been all on the Savage deal.
I think the Sin Cara Chavo
Of course, yeah.
is one that I'm kind of curious more than anything about. What's your take on this Sin Cara Chavo Guerrero deal?
Well, at least Chavo's getting a spot in the pay-per-view. Is it a pay-per-view match?
Apparently so,
It
yeah.
is, yeah. It's booked and all, yeah, amazingly.
That's good news for Chavo then.
Mm.
Of course, he has
Is he-
tried
when was
to-
it last-
yeah.
Pardon?
Just going to say he's tried to sort of build this over the past few weeks. I'm not sure how successful it's been to actually have led to a pay-per-view match, but it's there seemingly.
When was the last time he was on pay-per-view? Was it against Rey Mysterio during like a few years ago?
Quite possibly.
I couldn't tell you the last time Chavo was on a pay-per-view, but you know, I like why they've brought him on. I couldn't tell you, but I kind of like what they've done with him. I suppose he's got a couple of years left, and as I said 2 weeks ago, I always thought he was a really good worker up there with Goldust as one that you know, should have done a lot more than he ever did, really. And maybe they might be giving him that, you know, last and final chance to shine. Hopefully, anyway. I'm sure it'll be a good match with those two guys.
I think it should be.
I've noticed he's changed his wrestling attire as well. It's like shorts now.
Yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to that side of it now.
Have you noticed, Charisma, the Zack Ryder push, the posters that are present now in the audience? This YouTube thing has gotten them seriously over.
I've only seen a few videos of it. I think I saw one with him backstage with John Cena and giving him a high five. But I've never been a fan of Zack Ryder, really. I don't see what's all the fuss is about him.
Neither do I, actually.
It's just, I think it's probably coming for him more so, trying to get himself over, or else it's the Office testing it. But it's a comedy thing, I think, or at least the attempt at comedy.
I thought that thing would bury him. I thought they'd look at it and they'd see us sitting there and go, look, what does he do? But actually it made me think that, you know, you talked about that TV network. We came across the thought that they're going to be doing kind of social networky type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Zack Ryder, you know, he's going to have a job doing some presenting, if nothing else.
Well, some people seem to be very strongly behind him. That Scott Stamford chap who does the commentating, he's been putting him over like crazy on his Twitter. Sorry, say again?
What's Kurt Hawkins doing at the moment?
Kurt Hawkins, your guess is as good as mine. Probably on Superstars if he's not released.
Maybe FCW. Maybe he was doing some SmackDown stuff. Actually, I think he could be knocking around on the SmackDown roster.
I know that Trent Beretta is knocking around there in the SmackDown deal. Don't know about Kurt Hawkins. I think he's probably in FCW or else he's released.
Yeah, most probably.
Has JTG made his Raw debut yet since the draft? Or have I missed it?
I don't think he has. He's still doing NXT stuff.
I was going to say I thought he had, but then I remembered it was the chap of the Usos in there with Cali this week in a classic.
I'm sorry I'm quite behind with all the Raw stuff. I think I'm starting to get into that phase where I'm having that sort of break from wrestling. You know?
Yeah.
Like you probably had your break a few years ago, but I think my sort of interest now is mainly music. So I think I'm a bit sketchy now with the music and of the wrestling side of things. So
It does happen. I think I probably would have been about your age when I took a pretty long break from it too. So nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Maybe it might pick up in a couple of years again for you.
I can certainly relate to it because, as you say, the exact same thing happened to me, and actually I would have been out a lot earlier. I did kind of look at it now and again and kind of see some stuff going on, but it wasn't until many, many years later that I went fully back into it again. And just when you think you're not going to get back into it, you get back into it.
That's all. It's all over once again.
Captain Charisma, I know you're hopefully going to be on with us in the chat room tonight. We're trying to kind of move on here. We want to get our little bit of a break. And indeed, it's been great to have you on video. Now, as you say, you might be taking a wrestling break, but hang around, stay with us. And indeed, we'll try and get you back into it if we can, you know.
Well, it's not certain. I might be up all night tonight. I'm downstairs in the dining room, so if you need me to help with the chats and whatnot, I just copied Steve's catchphrase there.
It's alright. See how easy it happens.
If you need help, you could just call.
Absolutely. Very much appreciated.
Good to put a face to the name.
See ya.
Have a good one. Take it easy.
We'll talk to you soon. Good night to Captain Charisma as we see him there waving good night. And we will hopefully talk with him very soon. We want to get a break in before that long pay-per-view. Let's get back to Drifter. I know Drifter called us. I know he's going to want to talk about Randy. We're going to have to keep it to, well, maybe we'll go another 10-15.
Loved Drifter last week, actually, even though I wasn't here when I watched back. And his buddy, Chicken.
Absolutely.
That was some funny stuff, wherever the two of them were. I wonder if we can get the Chicken guy back on. He was kind of funny, actually.
Actually, yeah, I think we have Drifter with us as we start up his video now. And indeed, we'll make sure we have him. Drifter, how are you? What a sad weekend it is for wrestling fans.
G'day, boys. What's going on?
Howdy doodles.
We're making the best, I think, of a very sad time. You know, Randy Savage, I know you have often mentioned him. Since the very beginning you've talked about, you know, meeting Savage, and we're going to have to hear that story from you once again. Because again, like you know yourself, I know Phil as well, old school fans, you're kind of in our age group, and certainly I think you kind of get the Macho Man thing.
Yeah, you know, I heard first of the death from Xbox Biker. He had Facebooked me, you know, late or early one morning or whatever, and it was like, yeah, the Macho Man's dead. And I was like, shut the fuck up, right? And, you know, had to go look, and sure enough, that's the case, you know, tragic accident, heart attack and crash into a tree.
Yeah. It struck me by surprise. So you heard it on the net. I think so many people got the news on the Facebook and Twitter. I heard it from yourself in the text message, and I think, you know, if I had been on Facebook, I probably would have seen it. But again, I didn't believe it at first. Like you say yourself, did you think it was another rumour?
Well, of course, right? You know, it's like, oh, John Cena died or The Rock died, and, you know, we've heard that a couple of times, but... you know, I checked out the TMZ report, and sure enough, you know, we lost another great one. At least, as I was saying in the chat room, it's at least not due to, at least as far as I know, any abuse of substances or, you know, a tragic case. You know, it just looks like it was, you know, simply his time, right?
Yeah, unfortunately so. I didn't see, I don't think either of us saw. Somebody said in the chat room that the autopsy report was out there tonight. Did you manage to get a look at that, or?
I've only read what the latest report was. You know, just basically the official police rundown of what they know happened. An autopsy obviously would have come back for weeks. So, you know, I'm not expecting to hear that Macho Man was on anything or abusing anything. I think, you know, if anything, tied into abuse at all. That's even the case. It would have been maybe, you know, abusing steroids maybe from his earlier years, taking a toll on his heart in his later years, if anything at all. You know, maybe it was just simply the guy had a health problem, you know?
That's exactly it, and, you know, hopefully that will be the case, because it's almost like a tide that gets added to over and over again when you have reports that kind of lead to, well, he was on this, he was on that, whatever they come out with. And I think it kind of makes the media again focus on that issue and never maybe look at when it is just accidental death. You know, every wrestler's death has to be something to do with,
there has to be drama,
abuse. Everybody said it. I mean, people said it here tonight. But it's unfair really to constantly focus on it. You know, the rumours that we talked about, the whole thing, the story about his fallout with Vince. What would your take be on that? I mean, is that a true story? The whole Macho Man with Stephanie, etc.
Well, I mean, not being there, obviously I can't tell you if that's a true story or not. I mean, from all accounts, from all the wrestling interviews I've watched, RF shoot videos and things of that nature, I would probably give it a very good chance that it is true or some truth to it. You know, Stephanie was probably a hot piece of ass. You know what I mean?
It can't be denied, really. You know, she did that. Oh, she did that voiceover for the pay-per-view. I thought, wow, you know.
Which pay-per-view was it back in the days?
Actually, just literally the last pay-per-view. I'm sure it was Stephanie doing that Extreme Rules pay-per-view.
Oh,
but anyway,
wow.
that's an aside.
That's another story, yeah. I didn't even copy
You know,
that.
again, like you say, you weren't around, we weren't around. We don't know if that's a legit story or not. And then you hear this thing about Roddy Piper and a bar fight. Or
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier,
Well, I'll tell you, you know, Piper was there. Piper
we're losing connection there, are we?
is one of those old school 80 legends. You know, Phil was talking, and he was talking about how some people just don't get it. I know exactly what the man means, because I could just tell that simply being in the chat room talking to some people, and they were reluctant to call in because they don't know what to say, and some of them said, you know, Drifter, you have the floor, and I'm like, well, you know, even if you haven't watched them as long as I have, we all love this thing called professional wrestling, or else we wouldn't be here, so why not, you know, come on and pay respects to one of the men who helped build this business and this company to what it is today.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose we have to kind of give allowance to the age difference between some of the peeps, between maybe yourself and us, and, you know, similar-ish age bracket and the younger peeps that might not have seen him. But I think for even Charisma, I know you said you hadn't seen much of his stuff, but maybe just even, you know, take an hour to go back and watch one of the classic DVDs or the Behind the Madness or the WWE one, just to get an insight into what it was all about. I'm sure you'd pick it up in 2 hours and appreciate it, probably more so than a lot of the guys today. Maybe not, but, you know, definitely worth a watch. And as Drifter said, paying respect to a guy we kind of grew up with. That's probably where we're coming from, and getting that side and being on that level, or not maybe being on that level, but getting the level he was on for sure.
You know, you're talking about like Macho Man memories and things like that, and obviously I think I'll have to break out the old Macho Man story one more time here in a minute. But strictly speaking of watching him when I was growing up, you know, it was before a time before I analyzed wrestling. Yes, I did say anal. So back when you were a kid and kayfabe took you away to a different spot, you know, and Macho Man would come out with Miss Elizabeth, who was, you know, absolutely gorgeous. You know, they were the first real power couple, if you will, the WWE. And he was essentially on his big championship run, or on his way to it, when I really became a fan of his. You know, in a day and age when Hulk Hogan dominated anything that was professional wrestling, you had Randy the Macho Man Savage now challenging for the who's going to win the belt. And even as a kid, you would always go, oh, well, Hogan's going to win no matter who it's against. But at that time, it was like, fuck, you know, I think Macho's going to take the belt, you know what I mean? Here's a real legitimate contender for Hulk Hogan. And in my eyes, he was just as large in life as Hogan was.
it's true, as big a character.
Yeah, in many ways, especially with, as you said, Elizabeth definitely added a lot to what he was. And Sherry as well, actually. I think she...
yeah, sure.
Very much
wasn't a Miss
underrated.
Elizabeth, you know, with that whole real love life couple that really made that something special. You know, I remember when they were doing the whole Mega Powers angle, and they were going to break up the tag team, of course, because they were such two big stars. You really couldn't keep them in the tag team for long. And one of the things was is that Macho Man was thinking that Hulk Hogan was trying to pick up Miss Elizabeth. And on I don't know if it was a Saturday night's main event or what, but they kept replaying this clip where, you know, Macho Man is hoisting Elizabeth on his shoulders and Hulk Hogan's trying to help her up and his hand is on his ass, and Macho Man kept replaying that in close motion. It was fucking great. I think, you know, where he had the toy deal and the video game deal, that it certainly was opening up a relationship. I don't know how large or how small, you know. So when you played back the Jericho interview and Jericho said, well, you know, in this business anything is possible, you know, I'm sure Jericho would be in the know more than we do, but there's only so many things that the man can probably legitimately say, you know, and not make it as fact, but more as an opinion or a guess, even though he probably does know, you know. One of the speculations that I heard, and of course this is just a rumor, so I wouldn't place any real amount of stock into it, is that there was talks of having the Macho Man be the Raw GM. Now imagine how epic that would have been.
Wow.
You know, Macho Man could come out, gray beard or not, you know, and you know, big pop, big surprise, play his music. He would be the type of GM that, you know, would have a weird outlook on things and make controversial decisions. At the same time, he'd be that Raw GM that, you know, you couldn't push around because he is the Macho Man. Dig it!
Indeed, you know.
He could have still, yeah, I totally agree. He could have totally just brought a whole lot more to what's going on now.
Yeah, just to say, Mike was down there for a second. I was just asking Drifter where Macho Man could have fitted in this day and age, and I'm sad now because I've been thinking forever about that major pay-per-view moment. I've said it to you 100 times, maybe I've said it on here, that time when Savage re-debuted. Maybe it was going to be at some crazy pay-per-view, maybe it was going to be a Mania, whatever it was going to be, I was waiting for it, and now we're going to be denied that moment. But I thought it recently about how many of those guys were denied. The Mr. Perfects, the Big Boss Man, all these people that could have been around today making the product better, maybe in front of the cameras, maybe behind the scenes. But it is sad, and let's hope that, you know, people aren't going to rely on that old crutch, if you like, of well, he has to have been doing X, Y or Z, because as you say, you know, not always the case.
No, you know, there's so much to say about the Macho Man, but I think, you know, when Phil was on, he covered quite a bit, and he spoke so eloquently about the Macho Man that it's going to be really hard for me to say anything that isn't a repeat of what he said, or, you know, I'd be hard-pressed to say it just as well as he did. You know, obviously he was a guy that grew up in that era. I might be a couple of years older, I might be older, but youngest looking. No, I'm just kidding. You know, being in the heyday of wrestling, say in you know, from '83 and up, you know, Macho Man was the cream of the crop. It was as good as you get. You know, you talk to any or listen to any wrestler speak about the Macho Man, and like you said, you know, there's some controversy behind him, but you know, everyone is human and everyone has faults. But I would think in the end, utmost respect. You know, I on my little site there, I did my own personal tribute. I posted a bunch of videos that I liked, and I went after some wrestler reactions, and I found two videos, one from Bret Hart and one from Honky Tonk Man, that were taken hours after his death. Bill Apter caught up with both men at an indie show, and what Bret said was, you know, that, you know, it took him back hard, because Bret knew Macho Man fairly well, and what he said was, death wasn't one of these tragic wrestling deaths, you know, just, you know, God took him. And I thought that was kind of well said by Bret Hart, you know, that it was just his time. And Darren Young went on Twitter to say, you know, it's just tomorrow's never a guarantee, you know, and tomorrow never is.
Jay Lethal and some peeps like that. Actually, speaking of Lethal, did you see his poem, his tribute to Randy?
I read about that. Lethal.
I read his poem, yeah. And I think if anyone wants to come out and do a little something extra, it should be Black Machismo. You know, I mean, how much can you honor a guy than what Lethal did in TNA? You know, they always kind of hoping one day that the Macho Man was going to come down and slap Machismo around for imitating him. I thought that would be such a great little program. You know, speaking of recent Macho Man, you know, memories, I always thought the last great Macho Man memory for me was, you know, he did make that one appearance in TNA and the place went nuts, you know, and he had that black leather coat on, the hat on, and, you know, looking like he just walked out of the Spider-Man movie. It was great.
You know, and even at that point, it looked like maybe we might be seeing more of him. And I think fans started to get their hopes up because suddenly he was around again. And, you know, it hadn't been that long since WCW. We didn't know at that point that we were going to be missing him for so very long as it turned out to be. You know, I heard so much about appearances. Your story, of course, revolves around an appearance. Now, you met the guy. You've often mentioned it, which again is a great thing. I'm sure a very proud moment as well. But, you know, it's funny because back then he would appear, but of course it became harder and harder to see him like that and to get an autograph or anything.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people in the chat know the story if they know me at all. I'm certainly going to tell it one more time in his honor for those that don't know, or just for those who want to have a laugh at my very bad Macho Man impression. Because I tell you, I certainly can't top Phil's. That was dead on. You know, it's hard to follow up a guy like Phil. You know,
I know what you're saying. Yeah, honestly, exactly what he said was, as you said, eloquent, and you know, I know exactly what you're saying.
And, you know, with the Macho Man shirt and shit, I mean, fuck, that was classic, you know? But, yeah, I met him. It was at a car show. It was, you know, era 86, 87. I was about 12 years old. And me and my buddy were big wrestling fans. And we went up, and there was, like, a set of stairs you went on, and there was a stage that, you know, moved across, and Macho Man was here, and a few feet over was Elizabeth, and you would walk up with your picture, and he would sign it, and then you go to Elizabeth, and he would sign it. And, you know, while we were waiting in line, Macho Man was kind of entertaining the crowd and talking to the crowd and making jokes and things of that nature. And one of the things he was saying was, well, how's X-ray glasses? Yeah, I can see right through Elizabeth's dress. Yeah. You know, it was pretty comical. So by the time we got up to him, my buddy was first. And Macho Man thought it'd be fun to fuck with my buddy a little bit. So he's like, yeah, you know, what's your name? Yeah. And so he's like, Mark. He's like, oh, is it Mike? Is it Mitch? Is it Matthew? And by the time he signed the name on his photo, he put the wrong name. He put Mike instead of Mike. And then when I got up to him, I was so nervous. I was like literally shaking, you know, because you're literally meeting your hero. You know, so when I say childhood hero, I know at the time Macho Man was one of those larger-than-life cartoon characters that you're seeing in person, and it's really him. You know, it's not some imposter, it's not some fake. You know, it's the man. So I was shaking. I was like, oh, man, you know, it's the Macho Man. I can't believe it. And he just looks at me, and with one hand, you know, he grabs those famous Macho Man shades, whips them off with his, you know, his eyes, you know, those little beady eyes of his, and stands up and goes, ooh, yeah, neither can I.
I can see him there in front of me. It would be great.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Great memory.
It's almost a personal promo for you, and I think something like that means probably a hell of a lot more than a signature on a bit of paper. You know, it's a moment that you'll never forget. More so.
That's exactly it. Drifter, we're going to take a break. Before that, Over the Limit. Of course, Over the Limit goes out the door tonight. Savage again, prioritised here. Pay-per-view action tonight. Are you going to be checking it out? I presume you are.
Yeah, you know, I keep forgetting that there's actually a pay-per-view, like you said, over the whole Macho Man thing, because I've been just, you know, kind of putting together my Macho Man tributes and videos and trying to keep up with the story. But yeah, you know, there's actually a pay-per-view tonight, so I'll definitely will be watching that, and I'll be still in the chat. And like Sonic said, you know, I'll be on standby and maybe call in before or after, or maybe, you know, during a bathroom break match, and we'll shoot the shit about it, you know.
Excellent. Send us a message, and at any point we'll have you on, and we'll even try the multi-call maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit more of a relaxed one, I think, over the limit. Nothing too hectic tonight, so it's kind of those ones where, you know, we'll be chilled out, and likewise, hopefully the peeps in the chat room and your good self can pop in and out and give feedback too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of enjoying a relaxing Sunday night, guys. Cheers, Wolfpack.
Good night.
Take it easy.
Talk to you very soon. That's Drifter, and again, we'll speak to him very soon. We're going to take a quick break, and in fact, about an hour and a half. We're going to be kicking off live Over the Limit coverage. That's coming up not next hour, the hour after that. Whenever it starts, live for you in your area. It's been all Savage, but coming up, we've got WWE Over the Limit sports entertainment storytelling tonight.
Start to finish.
And, you know, that's what I'm going to put in the justin.tv description, sports entertainment storytelling, just to make sure the guys over at Stanford CT see it and know exactly what we're doing. No copyright material here tonight. And I must tell you also, sorry for interrupting, but the Justin archive, we got that this week, so even if they cut us, we're not going to lose that anyway.
Well, your good self backed it all up, so even if they come near us and pull us down, we're backed up with all the vids from the very start, which is always a good thing.
Indeed, not relying at all on that justin.tv